Yo, I hope you guys are doing fantastic today. This video is going to be just a little bit different. We're just going to take a look at the dev vlog, the most recent dev vlog, and we're going to kind of go over it. I'm going to save you guys a whole lot of time because this video is like an hour and 22 minutes long. It is a very, very long video, but there are some pretty interesting tidbits in the video, so we're going to go over those. But before we jump into like the meat and potatoes of the video and some of the highlights of it, I'm going to kind of summarize what this video was about, right? So here are a few of the high points, and then we'll kind of go over some of the other stuff. So one of the things they did not talk about was fresh start server info, but they said that they're going to release some of that very soon, so we have that to look forward to. I would hope within the next week or two we'll hear something there. The roadmap, a new roadmap is going to come at the October dev video, so I'd imagine we'll get a new roadmap like at the end of October, which is a pretty big deal. Scott mentioned that at the very end of this video, and I'm looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to seeing what's on that roadmap. That'll be pretty exciting. Also, they talked about solo and group queue arenas and improvements coming to the game, which is a pretty big deal. Solo and group queue arenas would be amazing. That's something that I would love to see come into the game for sure. The only problem I have with those is that it kind of splits the queue up, and right now, even getting in 3v3 arenas, it hasn't been bad at all recently because of the large influx of players. But whenever servers aren't like super populated, sometimes it can be a little bit tough to get into those arenas. So I hope that at some point we get like cross server queues, which they've talked about before in the past. Didn't really mention that in this video, but they've talked about that before in the past, so hopefully we'll get those. And then these solo and group queue arenas, I don't think would be a problem. I think it would be awesome to have those in the game at that point, because then I think that you would have plenty enough players to support that type of thing, which would be great, I think, for everybody. So they did mention those, and they said that those are coming into the game. That's fantastic. They also talked about what the next weapon may be in New World, and they were pretty overwhelmingly in agreement that like daggers is the next weapon that players really want. They did not confirm that daggers is going to be the next weapon they implement, but apparently that's what everybody wants. I'm here for that, dude. I'd be okay with daggers, but I also think we need probably like a new focus weapon, right? We have life staff, and then that's it. I mean, void gauntlet, but you know, life staff is really it if we're being really honest here. So then they talked about also why they didn't increase the level cap for Brimstone, which I thought was pretty interesting. So they went like more of a horizontal gameplay route, and they did not increase the level cap or the gear score cap for Brimstone, which I personally like. I agreed with that 100%. I like the fact that they're doing more horizontal progression with Brimstone, with like the heart gem runes and some of the other things they're adding into the game, because I think there is going to be a large influx of players, and you don't want those players to be too far behind. So I'm super happy they're not increasing it yet personally. And I think they did mention that like later on down the road, they'll probably increase the cap for those things, but right now they're not. And I think that's a very smart move. I'm here for that, and I like that. So here is where it gets really interesting though. Here's where things get really interesting. So the rest of the video, basically, there was the intro here. The first year takeaways is really kind of the good spot, and we're about to get on into the meat of what this whole video had. There's probably about 5 minutes worth of really good stuff, and then the revamped starting experience, we have a video on that we posted, I don't know, a couple weeks back whenever this first hit the PTR. If you're interested in seeing that, you can go watch that video. It's much shorter than this section here, but there's some interesting stuff in here. They talked about Brimstone Sands, which I think most of us at this point have already heard most everything about Brimstone Sands. Heart gem runes, we also have a video of that on the channel explaining all of heart gem runes, as well as a big guide over on newworldfans.com explaining heart gem runes. Great sword, we've all seen the great sword, which this was a pretty interesting section. I mean, all of this was pretty interesting. It's just very long. The Enid expedition, they talked about that, the making of that, and some things that went on behind the scenes for the Enid. That was pretty cool. Enid, I'm not sure how you say that, but you guys get the picture. And then the final thoughts, they just talked about, you know, wrapping this thing up, and then teased the new roadmap that's coming in, which is going to be pretty cool, I think. But here are the big takeaways right here. Okay, we're going to fast forward this video just a little bit, and we're going to take a listen. So let's pause this thing, let's unmute it, and let's take a listen to this segment right here, and then we'll talk about it.
I think the first one is we're going to start leaning more into solo. Yeah. But by the way, that doesn't mean we're going to ignore PvP or PvE or anything else. Or multi or group play. We're going to lean into solo as one thing. We're just going to put more effort toward.
Yeah, I think especially at endgame, there's not a lot of solo activities that you can do right now. And I think that's something we're starting to take a look at. And I think you're going to start to see glimpses of it in Brimstone already. There might be opportunities for more solo chests as you get into the PTR and explore there. And I think, you know, finding ways to you know, create meaningful progression in gameplay for end game players as solo is something we're gonna start thinking more about.
But I think the experiment, fight during the end of the Brimstone story.
Oh,
After I played it a few times, I'm like, I think we probably should try to find more ways to do things like this in the game. It feels really good.
yeah, it's the Apophis fight. That solo instance is really fun, and it's like playing a boss in an expedition, except you get to do it all by yourself. It's got the same phases.
I didn't want to blow the
Spoilers.
people, but
Big
It's
spoilers.
not what I just said.
it's not a Apophis, it's some other person.
They're going to see it.
Yes.
All right, so that's a pretty big one there. It's like new solo content. I think that's a pretty big tell as what's going to come for New World in the future. Plus, there's some other good stuff that we're about to listen to here in just a second as well. But I personally am here for that. I like solo content, solo in-game content. All the time, you may not have somebody on to play with, and a lot of times this solo content really tests your abilities as a player. I really enjoy that. There was a few like solo trials in ESO. I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head, but I enjoy going in there, and I think one of them is called Maelstrom Arena, maybe something like that. Anyway, they were really fun, man, and they challenged you as a player. They were very fun, challenging solo content. So I like that they're leaning in this direction, and we're about to find out as well. They're going to add some group content to the game too. So they're not really doing just solo content. So don't worry about that. They are doing group content as well, but they are leaning into this direction a little bit more, which I think is good. There's a lot of solo players that play MMOs, and a lot of people don't understand that. I do. I think it's fine to play an MMO as solo player. It's not necessarily that you don't want to play with other people. You just don't necessarily want to be in a big company or socialize with other people or whatever, but you also want to participate in PvP, which you can't do in or group content like raids, etc., which you can't do in single player games, obviously. So I think this is great. I like this. It's a way for solo players to kind of progress, test their abilities, etc. So I think that's kind of a big deal. Want to talk about that one real fast. Now let's listen to this next one. It begins to get even more interesting here, where they confirm some of this other things coming to the game.
We now feel like we've done a pretty good job at group content, and now we want to start working towards super hard endgame raid content.
There it is.
And it was really important that we made a few good expeditions before we start, crawl before you walk, walk before you run, that kind of thing. It was really important that we felt like we were succeeding at making expeditions before we start looking at raids. And I think we have some evidence now that we're doing a pretty good job at expeditions, and we can start moving down toward that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of compelling content to be made for 10, 20 group of players to see. You may have seen a glimpse of something that's in the future in store for you. And we are looking to add a lot more content like that in the future.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be hella fun when it's done. But the other thing is, like, right now, a lot of the gearing in game is so oriented.
All right, so we're going to pause it right there, okay? So they're talking about adding big end game raids, which I'm here for. This is something players have asked for a very long time. I think it's going to be very good. I hope they keep it into the 10 player range. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of these massive raids. You guys might be. You might like that content. I don't. Every time I played a game that requires 40 man raids or something, and he said more like 10 to 20 man raids, but I think even 20 is a lot. I like 8 to 10 man raids is personally what I enjoy, and I hope that's what they stick to, but we'll see. Either way, raids are coming. That's a huge deal. That'll be an amazing deal whenever it comes into the game, I think. And I think they're doing it the right way. The expeditions, they took baby steps, getting their expeditions fine-tuned, and I agree with them. I think the expeditions are now in a really good spot. The Enid expedition is really, really good. The mechanics in there now are you can tell they're next level. The last couple of expeditions they've added to the game with Tempest and now Enid are, well, they added Barnacles and Black Powder in there too, which has some mechanics in there as well, but Tempest really does. And now Enid, they're really good. They've improved over time with them for sure. So I think it is. I think it's ready for raid content. I think people are waiting for it. I think it's going to be a huge addition to the game, and I also think it'll bring back a lot of players whenever they add raids. So what do you guys think about raids? You like them? You here for them? You want raids in the game? I think it's going to be good. It'll be interesting also to see what kind of gear drops from raids. Not sure how that's going to work. That's yet to be determined, but I guess we'll find out. But having really hard in-game content like that, raid-wise, I think is going to be very, very good. I think it's going to be fantastic for the game. So now, here's the part. This part right here, this next part, probably gets me the most excited out of any of this, though.
Towards PvP, right? Best in slot is defined by resilient and all the PvP perks, right? And what we want to do is create some PvE content that is as hard and challenging as war, so that you really have to optimize your gear for the PvE experience. And I think when we release this feature, that is a goal, right? Like to make sure that it really drives the end game progression.
I hope whenever we release that feature, you have some method that helps you manage those gear changes that we're talking
Here we
about.
go.
Because I think that would be important.
Yes, one of the big things that we're looking to do is aim for easier ways to swap in between different gear sets. Obviously, those of you who do high-level mutations, you're probably rocking different gear sets for different mutations to reduce the damage that you're taking from the monsters in those. Inventory management starts to become a lot when you are carrying all these.
It's a pretty big
pain.
pain.
Looking to add a feature that will help out with that significantly.
As a crafter, I would like that also, right? Like I don't have to swap into
Certainly
stone
true.
cutting, refining, all that.
But just full transparency, those aren't like in the near-term roadmap. These are things we're working toward.
That's why we're not calling them out by any kind of name.
Yeah.
All right, so gear sets. We have gear sets finally confirmed. I think they talked about this a little while back as well, so we knew these were something that was coming into the game, but they are working on them. I think they're still a ways away, but whenever those come into the game, I think players are going to rejoice around the turnum because we all need them. Managing gear in New World is not very fun at all, especially if you've been playing the game for a long time. You just end up stacking gear in M10s, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We just need a way to organize it better. Right now, you can't even move your items in your inventory where you want to put them. They're stagnant. You have to move an item out of your inventory and then put it back in, so it puts it at the top of the thing. It's not great. You can sort by time and weight and all that stuff, but it's just not very intuitive. And so to hear the gear sets are coming into the game just makes me a very, very happy person. So that was another big takeaway. And here's the last one. This is a pretty big one too. And let's just take a listen here.
Speaking of things we're working toward, on
Yeah.
our last start,
Things that are in the design phase.
yes, things that are really early, like concepting.
Yeah.
But we do get some feedback that players would like more ways to move quickly through the world.
Yeah.
More fast
And
travel points?
more.
I don't think they want
you know-
fast travel.
You know, shrines are great, but as our world is growing, and I mean, people have seen Brimstone Sands, it's massive, and the world is going to continue to grow. We are designing mounts.
Again,
There we
no
go.
timeline on these. Very far into the future,
Yeah.
but it is something we are beginning to actively work on. Part of that is because we know as the world gets, like right now, the world is really big. I think if it gets any bigger, it's going to require it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's super important. So you can kind of think about timelines along those lines.
But don't think about timelines,
Yeah.
like at all.
Yeah.
Don't think about that. Just know that we heard you. We know that this is important, and we are working on it, but it is very, very close to just the inception point.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in an effort to not
All right, so there you go. Very, very close to the inception point, but mounts are now 100% confirmed. This has been something that's been floating around the New World community for so long, and mounts are a very controversial topic among people that have been playing New World for a long time. So I really want to know what you guys think about mounts in the description or in the comment section below. It'd be fantastic because it's one of those things that like I'm not against mounts at all, but there's a lot to think about here, right? Like right now and up to this point, I don't think New World has really needed them. I don't think they've been very necessary for the game, especially since they lowered days off fast travel costs, etc. But mounts it's just been this controversial topic. Some people really, really want them. Some people really, really don't want them in the game. I think they'll be a good addition to the game if done correctly and done properly. The biggest thing that I worry about, obviously, is open world PvP. I like to PvP, and open world PvP in New World is some of the most fun I've ever had in the game. It is incredible, and so I just don't want mounts to kind of destroy that part of the game, and so I don't know how they're going to implement them. I think there's ways to do it, obviously, that it doesn't affect it. I would also like to see mounts come into the game as like a more of a bigger system. I don't really want like some magic ethereal mount that I push a button and it summons the mount. That's very convenient, but I would like to see more of like and maybe you can do that, but some other system tied to it, like animal husbandry or even like some kind of animal taming, something to go along with it, to make it more of a deeper system. I would like to see that personally, instead of just here's you a mount, you know. So hopefully we'll see something like that come in, but that's really about it. We have a few really big things. I mean, more solo content I think is a pretty big takeaway. I like really high end, really hard in-game solo content. I really enjoy that. It really tests you as a player. We have raids that are confirmed. Those are coming into the game, and they did tease, you know, he said we got a glimpse at something, and I think they're talking about the sandworm there. I think they're kind of teasing the sandworm from Brimstone. If you guys have seen that. If you haven't seen it yet, we did post a video about that on the channel. Just kind of, whenever you walk into Brimstone, you see this just massive sandworm, which is crazy. And I think that may end up being a raid boss in the future. So we'll see. But raids are confirmed, which is a huge deal for the game. Gear sets would be absolutely amazing. And then of course mounts, which is such a hot topic, but mounts, I wouldn't expect to see mounts at like late 2023, probably at the earliest. That's my guess. But that's it, boys and girls. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. I would definitely like to know your thoughts on everything they've said here. And if you've already watched this thing all the way through, let me know what you thought about this in general. It was their 1-year anniversary for New World as well, which I think is absolutely incredible. The game has come a long way in a year, and it's really good to see. I think the future's looking bright for the game. What do you guys think? You think it's looking good, headed down the right way? What are we talking about here? Anyway, that'll do it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, or if you just want more New World content, we're going to post in here pretty regularly. Just make sure to hit the subscription button. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to continue the conversation, come hang out with me on Twitch, twitch.tv/BDLG. We're live every Tuesday through Friday at 8 a.m. CST. That's going to do it. We'll see you in the next one.